Hey folks, welcome. My eyes are pointed in a different direction because my camera is not directly ahead of me. It's off to my right hand side, so I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at the screen so I can monitor the image that you're getting of me right now. Here, just for a moment, I'll look in the camera. I'll wave at the camera. I can't see what you're seeing. Now I'm going to aim my eyes toward the screen, just like when they catch a fan at the football game and they're looking at the screen, so they're not looking right at the camera. But I'll look at the screen. There's the screen, and that's the view you're probably going to have of me most of the day. But just to begin, I wanted to show you what I look like straight on. Anyway, the reason the camera's over there, I used to have it square on, but right now I've changed my configuration quite a bit. 2 days ago, the delivery folks from Best Buy came in with an 85-inch television, and their first inclination was to park it in the living room. And I said, no, it's not going to the living room. It's going back to the game room. That is going to be the centerpiece of my new flight simulator. So I know many people who spend a good chunk of money on flight simulators tend to get them specialized for a Airbus or a Boeing or a Cessna or a Cirrus or whatever the case may be. Well, I like to fly all airplanes, so I like to have a very generic simulator. And what the big screen does is it allows me to set the POV. I'm forgetting what the POV stands for, but it allows an old guy like me to have a life-sized cockpit with gauges that I can read and displays that my old eyes can read, and yet still use my peripheral view to take in the rest of the world because the screen is so large, and I'm actually only sitting about 3 feet from it, so it dominates it captivates my image. Now, because it's not a curved screen, and because I'm not using multiple monitors, I do tend to get distortion on the ends. Just like when you try to make a flat map of a round world. In this case, I'm looking at a flat image of a curved arc of sight. The ends tend to be larger, tend to be distorted. Just like on some maps, the Arctic and Antarctic are distorted because you're making a flat map of a round world. So to combat that, I'm using TrackIR. And TrackIR, of course, will turn the entire image with my head turn. And then the part of the image that's right in the ends are still going to be distorted, but the part of the image that's just in front of me will not be distorted. So I can go to an overhead or I can go down below and I can fiddle with things and they'll be a normal relationship. Anyway, what we're looking at right now is our route of flight. This is normally under normal conditions, it's a very scenic flight down from Norfolk. This is the commercial airport in Norfolk. There's Virginia Beach, which is a much bigger commercial airport. And there are a number of other airfields here because not far from Norfolk is Norfolk Naval Air. I'm sorry, not Norfolk Naval Air Station, Norfolk Navy Base and Oceana Naval Air Station. That might be Oceana just directly below our flight path. And this route is one I developed several years ago for flying a Cessna, but I like it. It's on what's called the river arrival to runway 1. Runway 1 is a south to north oriented arrival. Our destination is Washington National Airport, Reagan Airport, known as Kilo Delta Charlie Alpha. And the river 1 is because the last section on final approach is right over the Potomac River onto runway 1. Under normal conditions, it would be extremely scenic, but I flew this flight just a little while ago and I noticed that it was quite overcast. It was a really nasty day. And you folks who've flown with me before, you know that I like to fly in real weather and real time of day. So our aircraft today is a Boeing T-45 Goshawk made by India Foxtrot Echo. It is quickly becoming my absolute favorite airplane, along with the other aircraft operated by or put out by India Foxtrot. This company, I tell you, they can do no wrong, and I'm anxiously awaiting their F-35 Lightning that should be out. I'm hoping any day, and their products just blow me out of the sky. Blow me out of the sky. They're just so wonderful. I wish I could put upon them as much praise as they deserve. Okay, KORF is our departure. Norfolk International. Our arrival is KDCA Reagan National. And we're going to take some time and enter some waypoints here. So they'll be in our navigation system. Let's okay, first one is HPW, Hotel Papa Whiskey. And we'll push add. Then the next one. Now, many of these people who, one thing I like about flying in North America is that the waypoints have some personality to them. So often when you're flying in Europe, the waypoints are very generic and don't have a lot of meaning behind them. The next waypoint is THHMP. I believe that is short for Trump, who was our president just before the current president. And then, and again, there's a comedy about some of these waypoints. There's a subtle jabs or other things. Our next waypoint is bully. Now, some people might think Trump is a bully. BULII. There's bully. Trump is a bully. And then our next waypoint is CAPS. CAPSS. Of course, Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital, but I believe that might refer to the Capitol's professional team. Is that hockey? It might be pro hockey. A lot of the waypoints around big cities often use references from the sports teams. And then our next waypoint is Hoyas. And right just south of the airport is Georgetown University. And Hoyas is the mascot, I believe, for Georgetown. Georgetown Bulldogs. I don't exactly know what Hoyas stands for, but that's the mascot. That's their little saying down at that university. And the next waypoint is Hall, Hall. I don't know what the reference for Hall is. Add. And the next waypoint is Caturn, KATRN. And if I flew into this airport all the time, or if I were a local, I'd probably have a better handle on what these waypoints actually mean. I'm from Seattle, and all of our waypoints have specific meanings behind them, specific stories behind them. But you can see, just like in our sim brief that we saw earlier, this is our sim brief, and you can see our routing. Our routing is the same. So I can minimize that. We have our Goshawk. We have current conditions. Our navigation is set up. Let's go fly. So as I mentioned, my new cockpit is set up with a Bravo throttle for most throttle functions and a Trustmaster Airbus dual throttle for when I'm flying an Airbus. And the reason I like the Airbus throttle is because it has the detents in the throttle for the various thrust settings. But most of the time I like the Bravo mostly because of the trim wheel. I'm a real big fan of the trim wheel, and this Bravo throttle's got a big monster one on one end, which is very realistic, not only for airline operations, but single engine, Cessna, Piper operations. The trim wheel is just right in the perfect spot next to me. And also the fact that I can use the rotary dial for heading, for altitude, for course selection is wonderful. I also keep a real sim gear, Garmin 530, and I don't use the screen on that. I use the screen from the simulator, but what I do is to use the dials, so change the radio frequencies with the dials. Well, I made a mistake. I wanted to start the flight cold and dark and go through the startup procedure, but I didn't. So we're at whatever default runway we happen to be at, runway 23. And because I made the mistake, I'm not going to go back and correct it. I'm just going to live with my error and fly from here. Well, my TrackIR does not seem to be working. That's okay. We'll deal without it. The one green, I have no cautions. One green light is for the anti-skid. Let's turn off the anti-skid. If I can find it over here. Oh, okay. It is off. Okay, that green light will go off once we take off, I'm sure. Let's get some air traffic control. And one weakness about this Goshawk, let's change our display to 10 miles out. That's the shortest range possible. You can see our number one waypoint is out there. I believe it's going to be about due north, but it's right there. And I'm going to push waypoint. Let's go to a different view here. And auto sequence. Hybrid. We'll change this to mono. And I think that will be fine. Don't have any ATC options. That is strange to me. Why don't I have any options in ATC? Well, I'm here on the runway. I guess with or without ATC, we'll find our way to Washington, D.C. So, let's I'm a little flustered because I didn't go through, in my normal routine, I start out cold and dark and I have a whole 45 minutes of getting the plane ready, and I, missing all that. I just want to make sure that everything is the way it should be. Okay, parking brake is on. We can release the parking brake. Gear is down. Flaps are at 1/2. That is all as it should be. I guess not much left to do but kick the tires and light the fires. So, throttle up. Holding with my toe brakes. Release my toe brakes. Just a little bit of right rudder input to hold center line. We're looking for 120 knots, 86, 95, 100, 110, 120. There we go. Rotate speed. You can see we have a low overcast. And positive rate. Gear goes up. Flaps go up. This is a rocket, isn't it? This plane is just an absolute rocket. Here we are in the soup. And see what I mean by the display? Even though my screen is 85 inches diagonal, the cockpit is life-sized, the HUD is in the center of my vision, and all the numbers are big enough for me to read. And I can also read the numbers on my displays without difficulty. I'm not getting... I can hear the aircraft, but I can't hear air traffic control. Interesting. So I'm going to turn north to my first waypoint. It's at a heading of 318. Look at the upper right corner of my right display. It's at a heading of 319 at 51 miles. And now I'm going to use my Bravo throttle to move my CDI needle to 319. And you can see that we are left of course. At 51 miles, we're now at 47 miles. It could take a little while to get that CDI needle to center. The closer we are, the faster that CDI needle movement would be. There it goes. You can see the CDI needle coming in. And as it comes in, I'm going to turn my course to 318. Or now 315. And we are steadied up on our way to our first waypoint, which is HPW. HPW is a VOR. I'm going to cut back our throttle. We're at 15,000 feet already. Good thing we have our oxygen on. From Norfolk to HPW is our longest distance between waypoints. Most of the waypoints are in the 20-mile range. This first one was 50 miles away. I'm holding just a little bit of left bank to get that needle back. Again, my praise to this aircraft knows no bounds, but either it doesn't have an autopilot or I have not researched it enough to figure out the autopilot. So I haven't, I don't have that under command. But to be honest, this aircraft is so fun for yanking and banking. And I've got a couple of aircraft carrier programs. I like to fly this airport in the realistic environment of Key West, Florida. Naval base out on the Florida Keys. And not only is Key West International just a few miles away, which makes it great for touch and goes, but there's also a carrier parked just outside, just south of the base. So I can do landings on the carrier. And because those three airports make up a triad, a triangle of activity, I never really have much use for the autopilot. As soon as I'm cleaning up after a takeoff, I'm dirtying up for a landing at an airport or a carrier. 225 on our airspeed, 15,000 on our altitude. We're just a little twinge right of course. There, our course is coming in nicely. Now we're right on course. I'm having to hold just a little bit of left rudder, left aileron. You can see, and another thing I like about this plane is it's got a real turn and slip indicator, a real ball, stand on the ball, as my flight instructor used to say. So many jets trust the autopilot to handle the coordination. This one, as you can see, as I step on the rudder, that ball becomes displaced. Of course, the purpose of the Goshawk, the T-45 Goshawk, it replaced the T-2 Buckeye before it as a Navy trainer. So this plane was specifically designed to be benign. I'm wondering why I'm not getting any audio on air traffic control. I don't think I'm going to have any audio from air traffic control. I'm just going to shut it, turn it off. I'm just going to assume that we have unlimited permission to do whatever we want. And you know, one of the things that would have been problematic anyway is that I'm flying in real world conditions. I want to land on runway 1, which presumes a wind to the south, but I can't always guarantee that, especially if I'm flying in live weather as we are right now. So even if we have wind in an unfavorable condition, the nice long runways at Reagan International and the power that this airplane provides, we can deal with the tailwind component on landing without much difficulty. Just keep your airspeed number correct, and your actual ground speed, the speed that you go over the ground, doesn't matter for aeronautic performance. Of course, it'll radically affect our stopping distance. What's that? Remember that Star Trek episode? Captain, I must have 30 minutes. I can't change the laws of physics, Scotty would say. Okay, we've made it to waypoint. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, we're still Going to HPW, it's 16 miles away. We've been slowly losing a little altitude, and we've also been losing airspeed. I think I may have cut my throttle a little too much. If I get, the airspeed's at 189. If I were to let it get to about 180, I would get a warning saying wheels, 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 because at that airspeed, the computer is assuming I want to dirty up for landing. Right now, the sky is so bright and the reflection off the clouds is so bright that my HUD is not very effective. I can barely make, the size is not the issue on the numbers on the HUD. It's just the contrast between the light green and the white of the clouds. So I'm using my displays. What a gorgeous airplane. Six miles to waypoint to 6 miles to our waypoint. It's actually waypoint number 2. I thought HPW was waypoint number 1. I don't know why, but it's saying number 2. Maybe number 1 was our departure airport. Not so sure why it's saying 2. I have them in auto sequence. So once we get to 2, it'll auto-sequence to number 3. Number 3, remember, is Tango, Hotel, Hotel, Mike, Papa, or Trump. Sometimes with the waypoints you have to use a little imagination, and it helps to know the area. But in Europe, you'd often have like a code. It'd go Mike 234, Charlie 6 or something. Which is fine as far as that goes. We're 15 miles from Trump. It's just, it's so great. Oh, there's an aircraft passing just above us to the, there's an aircraft going by. Would have been nice to have a little air traffic control. That's okay. I believe our ILS frequency for landing is 109.9. Let me pull that up just to make sure. go here to DCA, charts list, approach, runway 1, ILS, and remember our last waypoint in our routing was Catern. Oh, there's Biden. Oh, look at Biden. 1099 is our frequency for the ILS. So let's crank this down to 1099. And again, I could do that with, I guess I can't do that. I was going to do that with the dials. 1099. Great. We are 3 miles from Trump, and notice how the CDI needle has gotten more sensitive as we get close to the station. Now we've switched over to Bully, and we are 37 miles from Bully on it's at 130. Get that CDI needle cranked around. My flight instructor always said to set up the navigation and then use it. So often, you see where you want the plane to go, and you automatically point the plane there, and then the navigation is not quite set up yet. Just take a moment. Usually there's nothing that urgent in navigation. Get your equipment set up, and then you can follow it properly. Okay, now we're on the needle, and we'll fly the needle in. 31 miles to Bully. Just take a tour of some of these preset views. There's the number 1 view. Really good high view for landing, right over the nose. Number 2 view, really good if you're using the HUD. 3, 4, and 5 are going to be pan views around the, looking outside. This is a useless view. This was a mistake by somebody. Again, it's one of the preset views that come with the aircraft. I think it might have been for landing gear or something. When you're doing your setup, this left console view and this right console view come really in handy. And then back up to our HUD view. This is the view I was using. The only thing different is I was zooming it out just a little bit. Because with my 85-inch screen, that view is actually larger than my cockpit. Larger than what I feel would be realistic for my cockpit. And I want my cockpit to be life-sized, not beyond life-sized. So that's life-sized right there. And I can move it up a bit so I have both displays. I've got my HUD, and I've also got a very good outside view. Now you remember me mentioning the left and right edges are distorted. Notice how the pillars get larger, and when I turn, the pillars will start to, that's a normal sized pillar right there. But as that pillar reaches the edge of the screen, it gets larger out of perspective. It's not bothering, on this airplane it's not bothering me. If you fly a Cessna, you get these big monster pillars. Especially a 152, a plane with a very small cockpit. Those those outer areas of the view tend to be well distorted. Again, without autopilot, I'm letting my altitude fluctuate more than I want to. We've busted 15,000 feet. $16 miles to Bully. Another reason my CDI needle is so sensitive is because I've got it set to the 10-mile range. We can use this top button on the right display to scroll our range. There's 10, 320 is the max, 160, 80, 60, 40, 20, and then down to 10. So if you're wondering what all that junk is behind me, most of that is the styrofoam that came from the packing box for this 85-inch screen. I was so excited to get it set up that I threw all the styrofoam to one end of the room, and it happens to be my backdrop for my camera view right now. I'll have to get off my lazy duff and take that down to the dumpster. The box is amazingly large. If you think an 85-inch screen is large, my goodness, the box that came in was just a monster. And you know, the funny thing about it is, you go to this was ordered online from Best Buy, but I had taken a look at it in the store. And when you see an 85-inch screen in the big store among all the other TVs, it doesn't really look all that large in that environment. But once you get it home, oh my goodness, that's a large screen. But I tell you what, and this is a dirty secret about large screen TVs. Okay, we're just past Bully, now on our way to Caps, 19 degrees. At 10 miles out. It might seem large initially, but that size will grow on you, and eventually you won't think it large at all. That large size will be your new normal. I remember when I got a 60-inch screen, and I think my actual television is 60 inches, and I wanted the TV news anchor. I wanted the TV news anchor head, the head that sits above the desk, to be the same size as my head, and that would be lifelike to me, as if someone were in my living room and I were talking to them. So I would walk up to the 60-inch screen and I would compare the size of my head to the size of the TV anchor. And that was my justification for getting a 60-inch screen. miles to Caps. Again, I let my altitude get away from me a bit. Now we're 16,000 feet. I didn't want to be that high. Now Hoyas at 24 degrees. And Hoyas is 10 miles away. Hoyas, the slogan of Georgetown University. Georgetown, I guess, is mostly known as a law school. The undergraduate program is not as notorious as their law school. And of course, much of that notoriety is because of their proximity to the nation's capital. Once you've graduated from Georgetown, you may have had an internship at the Capitol. You may have worked with lawmakers or lawyers whose daily business is at the Capitol. So a really great advantage to the law school students. 4 miles from Hoyas. Next is Hall at 47 degrees. We're 15 miles from Hall. Just a little bit right, of course. I'm going to put my pipper just a little bit to the left so we can get a little closer to being on course. You can see that CDI needle come in as we're 9 miles away. Of course, if you were truly in IFR conditions and talking to air traffic control, you would really want to have a really firm grasp of your altitude, your airspeed. I'm letting my altitude fluctuate within 2,000 feet. I'm not really paying monstrous attention to my airspeed, and you would really want to be on the needles. My instructor used to call it milking the mouse. Pretend that your yoke or your stick is the little mouse teat, and you've got to milk it. So very precise, small movements. Each movement with a purpose. Milking the mouse. 3 miles from Hall. Okay, there's Cattern. Cattern is the beginning of our procedure. So let's cut the power. We are 11 miles from Cattern. Cattern is at 12 degrees. And we should get that Potomac River. Now that, remember, this is the river arrival, so that Potomac River is going to be our guide. no matter how wonderful the electronics are, they're never as accurate as your own eyeballs on a natural landmark, like a river. Or even better would be the environment of the runway, which we'll have here pretty soon. Okay, let's start to dirty up. Landing gear down. Flaps to 1/2. This airplane only has 2 flap settings. 1/2 and full down. And that's all it takes to be dirtied up. Let's go into our landing view. You see this, because the HUD is not colonnaded, you can see the HUD is not much value to us. In a colonnaded HUD, the HUD would follow your eyes no matter where you're placed in the seat. You can see I flipped ILS, and you can see the localizer is to our left, and we are above glide slope. Actually, the localizer is to our left. I don't know where the glide slope is yet. The glide slope hasn't come in yet. So we're getting ourselves on localizer. I imagine we're above glide slope, but I don't know. I don't see where the glide slope is yet. (2,400 feet). 133 on the airspeed. There comes the glide slope from the bottom. Okay, we have localizer, which will be flying through if we don't correct for the course. We're just a little above glide slope. We're totally on the needles now. There's the outer marker. We're now falling a little bit below glide slope. Gives us some power.
Below glide slope. Below glide slope.
Yeah, we are below glide slope. Now I'm intercepting the glide slope from the bottom. We're getting a crabbing just a little bit. Take out some of the crab as we regain the localizer. Just a little fast, a lot high. There's the inner marker.
Flap, flap, flap.
Landing long. Oh well. We'll take this first exit. And of course, this is a commercial airfield, so we're playing with the big boys now. And all these big airliners here. There really isn't a... Without a little research, I'm sure with some research I'd find a better place to park. But without that research, I'm just here with all the big boys. Don't really know where I'm going to put my little aircraft. I see an empty gate up here. I'll go to that empty gate. What the heck? Let all the kiddies come to the window and see this Navy training aircraft. Once you stop, it takes quite a bit to get moving again. There we go. Well, we're not perfectly straight. Let's get the parking brake on. And I'm not going to worry about the shutdown. Thanks, folks, for joining me. And once we get our new cockpit the way I'd perfectly like and get all the styrofoam taken out to the trash, we'll do a flight in a commercial jetliner or maybe a Cessna. But thanks for joining me on this flight in the Goshawk from Norfolk to Reagan National, our nation's capital. Have a great day, folks. Hope to see you again soon.